our final number for this Monday? Well, that's a 2. Now be sure to recheck your tickets and don't forget to join me back here tomorrow. Good night.
The Nightly Business Report on Vermont ETV is funded in part by the DPM Group of Montreal, independent brokers of full financial services dedicated to a tradition of financial security and peace of mind, and by members like you.
IBM plays hardball with a big software company, and its takeover bid sends Lotus stock through the roof today. Good evening, I'm Cassie Seifert in New York.
And I'm Paul Kangas in Miami. Kmart names a new CEO, while MCA's would-be Top Gun backs out. And the Clinton administration wants 8 million Americans to be new homeowners by the year 2000. But can it be done?
Nightly Business Report is made possible by Digital, doing whatever it takes to make information work for people and not the other way around. Franklin & Templeton Worldwide formed the more than $115 billion Franklin Templeton Group, a global alliance of mutual funds and investment products distributed by investment professionals. A.G. Edwards, serving the investment needs of individuals for more than 100 years. A.G. Edwards, built on a foundation of trust, research, and commitment to investor success. And is produced in association with Reuters, which provides real-time and historical market data, news, and analytics over Quotron Advantage AE.
Lots of hard cash for a software firm. That's what IBM is offering today for the 55 million outstanding shares of Lotus Development. It's a $3.3 billion deal that sent Lotus stocks soaring. Scott Gervey reports.
IBM Chairman Lou Gerstner didn't need notes at his briefing today, but he says his company does. What IBM wants is a product called Lotus Notes. Business computer users have desktop computers linked to other desktop computers, as well as to large centralized machines. These may be teams of workers in one company, but they are also likely to be workers dealing with customers at other companies. Lotus makes it far easier to share information among different kinds of computers and communications networks.
I think it is a very unique transaction because both Lotus and IBM have been investing significantly in this new model of computing. But together, our skills match in a way that is breathtaking.
Along with Notes, IBM also gets the Lotus Smart Suite of application products. Microsoft dominates the application suite market with its product, Microsoft Office, and Lotus has received favorable reviews for many of its products, but still has faced a string of quarterly losses and falling market share.
Smart Suite could do better rather than worse as it currently is doing. And of course, there's an awful lot of pull-through dollars of revenue associated with the kind of work that Notes represents.
IBM today stressed that it values the Lotus employees as well as their products and intends to leave them alone to run their company. It says it can supply the financing and marketing Lotus needs to grow. Still, Lotus CEO Jim Monzi has been resisting IBM's proposals. In a written statement today, Lotus said it was surprised by IBM's tender action and would have to give it careful study. Some Wall Street speculators have said Lotus may file an antitrust suit against IBM to stop the action. But many legal experts say there is virtually no overlap between the companies to raise antitrust concerns. Lotus might also seek help from this hostile takeover from a white knight. Computer Associates, Novell, Apple, and AT&T have been mentioned as potential suitors for Lotus. All but AT&T would be hard-pressed to make a competing cash offer.
We think it makes a lot of sense for shareholders, for customers, for employees, and so you can characterize it whatever way you want, but we think it's a very powerful idea whose time is here now.
The IBM bid of $60 a share is almost double the closing price of Lotus last Friday. Today, Lotus closed above 61, indicating that Wall Street believes the deal will be done and that the price will still be higher. Surprised or not, Lotus has very little time to consider its options and take some sort of action. The IBM tender offer begins tomorrow. Scott Gervey, Nightly Business Report, New York.
Joining me now in New York with more on the IBM offer for Lotus is Peter Labe of the investment firm Buckingham Research Group. Peter, are you convinced that the price for Lotus will rise?
I'm not very convinced it will. I know that the stock is selling above the IBM projected tender price, but I think that's assuming there is a white knight, allegedly Oracle or AT&T or somebody like that, or that IBM will be willing to go a little higher for a friendly deal as distinguished from a hostile deal.
Do you think that's too big an assumption to make?
I think that's a little dangerous. I don't, I think that's a pretty full price for Lotus.
How critical do you see this merger being for IBM?
It's not critical in one sense. It's a good strategic fit. I think most of the problems analysts like myself are going to have with it is why is it worth $3.3 billion?
Now, Lotus stock was trading in the 80s, I understand, just about a year ago, back down in the 30s before the offer today. How do you explain that?
Well, I think people got caught up a year ago with groupware, as it's called, this ability to Lotus notes and CC mail to communicate. And that's, in fact, what's of interest to IBM, in my opinion. And I guess it didn't develop as rapidly as investors hoped.
What would you do with the stocks now of both Lotus and of IBM?
Well, IBM, I think, will find that this is merely a pause on their road to success, that the dilution is very minor to the earnings. IBM has lots of cash, and it's going to become a bigger and bigger problem. The cash is mounting every day.
So they're going to have to spend it this way or find another way to spend it?
Well, there are other ways to spend it. You could increase the dividend, you could buy your stock back, or you could go for growth by making strategic acquisitions. And that's, I think, the preferred method, and why I think ultimately Wall Street will come to accept this.
We have just a couple of seconds left. It sounds like you're positive on IBM. What about Lotus? What would you do with the stock right now?
Well, I personally, I don't have any particular insights. I guess I would be a seller here and not take the risk.
Okay. Thank you very much for joining us. Our guest, Peter Labe of the investment firm Buckingham Research Group.
After the Dow Industrial Average lost 28 points last Friday, Wall Street's bulls battled back as stocks opened today with market breadth 11-6 positive right at the outset. The industrial average fell a few points, though, because IBM opened down 4 points on that news that it made the Lotus buyout bid. When bond prices rallied, IBM bounced back, as did the market in general, and by noon, the industrial average posted a 20-point gain. With high-tech stocks soaring on takeover fever prompted by the IBM bid for Lotus, the broad market followed, and the industrial average posted a 46.75 point gain at 2:30 this afternoon. As the Dow approached the 4,500 level, selling pressure picked up, especially when bonds faded, and the industrial average saw its closing gain trimmed to 32.16 at 4476.55, which is still a record high, eclipsing last Thursday's by some 4 points. So the Dow today closed down 17 1/3 points from its best level, but it was up exactly 37 points from the low of the session. Trading volume today, a little disappointing, down 30 million shares from last Friday's pace, but 2.5 times as much up volume as down volume. The Dow Transports had a decent day, up a little over 10 points. Utilities doing well, up 2.11. Closing tick, decidedly bullish at plus 578. Look at all these new highs, the 500, 100, and mid-cap 400, all significant gains to record closing highs. Commodity Research Bureau Index up 0.12. More new highs, the composite on the New York Exchange up over a 1.5. Value line at a record, finally, up 2.22. And the Wilshire 5000 up a little over 32.25 points, of course, to a record. The bond market extended last Friday's broad rally early today with a long end up as much as a full point. But some traders finally decided to take a few profits, especially after precious metals and oil futures edged higher throughout the day. The selling was anything but heavy, however, since tax-free issues still closed with 3/4 point gains. Corporates ended up a 1/4 point on average, and the long-term government market gained a 7/32 on the 30-year bond, bringing that yield all the way down to 6.52%. The Lehman Brothers long bond index gained nearly 2.5 points, and Fed funds edged down 1/8 from Friday to close at a flat 6%. Later, I'll show you where the action was on Wall Street today. Cassie?
Paul, as you said, the bond market extended its run today, partly on the strength of heavy overseas buying. Now, Suzanne Pratt has more on the day's trading.
Like an unstoppable freight train, the bond market continued its rally today. Heavy overseas buying on the heels of a big run-up Friday initially caused the 30-year Treasury bond to open nearly a point higher in New York. Its yield, which moves in the opposite direction, fell below 6.5%. But analysts say with no new economic data for the market to chew on, trading eventually quieted down.
Clearly in Europe, there was some sentiment that there would be a Fed easing today. It seemed unlikely from people such as ourselves looking from New York, but I think it's been a little bit of a disappointment trade that the Fed did not act today after 2 straight months of stunningly weak employment data.
The most recent weak data came on Friday when traders and investors were shocked by the largest drop in payroll employment in 4 years. Analysts say as a result of that news, there's a growing belief in the bond market that the Federal Reserve will cut interest rates, perhaps as soon as its next policy meeting on July 5th, and that the economy may be heading straight for a recession rather than a soft landing. Analysts say all of that bad economic news continues to spell good news for bonds.
The market has started to realize that the economy is soft. When you have a soft economy, you're not going to get an inflation threat, and that's always the thing that the bond markets fear most. So we're not going to get inflation. We might get a recession, and the bond market is elated.
Most analysts say despite that elation, the bond market is due for a breather. And they say it could come this week, especially with no major economic news expected out until the wholesale inflation report on Friday. Suzanne Pratt, Nightly Business Report, New York.
Kmart named veteran retail executive Floyd Hall to be its new chairman and chief executive officer. Hall is a former top executive with Kmart's rival Target stores. He was also with bookseller B. Dalton and grocery chain Grand Union. Hall says he will follow the turnaround strategy laid out by his predecessors, improving basic discount retail operations to boost revenue. Kmart shares rose 1 3/8 to close at 14, volume leader on the big board today. And Seagram's company's talks with Hollywood super agent Michael Ovitz appear to have collapsed. Wired service reports say financial issues were the sticking point in the deal. Seagram's reportedly wanted Ovitz to run its newly acquired MCA Entertainment division.
President Clinton today unveiled a national strategy to help low and moderate income Americans buy homes. The administration says the National Homeownership Strategy will combine public and private efforts to help people realize their American dream. Darren Gersh reports.
The National Homeownership Strategy is made up of 100 suggestions for bankers, builders, and government to work together to make it cheaper to build and buy a home. Key goals include cutting regulatory burdens, reducing down payments through flexible mortgage financing, and aggressively enforcing fair housing and lending laws. The administration claims the strategy will bring millions of low-income buyers into the market, giving the economy a big boost.
If more families can buy new homes or older homes, more hammers will be pounding, more saws will be buzzing, home builders and home fixers will be put to work.
Builders and lenders applauded the president for calling attention to the industry's concerns, but they aren't revising their business plans expecting a flood of new buyers into the market. Most consider the projection of 8 million new homeowners the administration hopes to create by the turn of the century overly optimistic.
It would be difficult to achieve that level, but if we could achieve 50% of that level, or if we could achieve 60% of that level, which I think is very doable, it would have a significant impact on this country.
Critics of the housing plan say the administration's strategy is long on goals but short on specifics, leaving much of the work to be done at the local level. The report also comes as Republicans on Capitol Hill are preparing a radical overhaul of the Department of Housing and Urban Development. Some 60 HUD programs for low-income and public housing are expected to be rolled into a few grants to the states. Republicans say what remains will have little resemblance to the current housing department.
It will be smaller, will rely more on technology, it will focus on its primary mission. It will ensure that we leverage our dollars and create partnerships.
Builders and lenders say the best way to bring low-income home buyers into the market is to lower mortgage interest rates. With rates now below 8%, builders hope enough new home buyers will come into the market to stabilize new home sales and even show some improvement in the next few months. Darren Gersh, Nightly Business Report, Washington.
Still ahead on Nightly Business Report, an American business fixture that's taking root in Britain. Irate shareholders begin airing their grievances at company meetings. The season of their discontent coming up.
The U.S. and Britain have agreed to expand air services between the two countries. The move is a step toward reaching an open skies accord that would end all restrictions on air services. The pact allows United Airlines to begin flights from Chicago to London's Heathrow Airport and allows British Airways to run a second daily flight on its Philadelphia to London route. And Paul, Britain has also agreed to talks to further liberalize the accord.
Guys, the airlines reacted positively to that news today, with American, U.S. Air all closing higher. UAL was the best point gainer, up 1 1/4 at 116 3/4. And the Dow had another record-breaking day. It had a very good day indeed, up 32.16, eclipsing last Thursday's previous record high by almost 4 points. 1,552 issues on the big board closed with gains, 704 lower, better than 2-to-1 ratio, 250 new highs versus only 13 new lows for the year. Kmart topped the active list, as I mentioned, 11 million shares, up 1 3/8, positive reaction to its new chairman, Floyd Hall. Merck up 2 points, that's a new high. IBM down 2 5/8. It opened at 90 1/4, which was the low of the day. Going to be a little money they're going to have to come up with if this Lotus thing goes through, of course. Ford Motor gained 1/2, and Boeing did very well, up 2 5/8 on word that it's won 2/3 of a $6 billion Saudi jetliner order, including 22 of its new 777 aircraft. Motorola, no change today. GM edged a 1/2 point higher. Micron Technology down 1/2. Bankers Life a 3/8 point gain. And Seagram down 1/2 point. CSX helping the Dow Transports gain 10 points with that 1.5 point rise. First Financial Management, a 3-point gainer on positive comments in this week's Barron's Financial magazine. GE gained 1 1/8. The word today, the company received a contract from a Russian firm to build 100 diesel locomotives. J.P. Morgan gained 2 full points after Bear Stearns Brokerage upgraded it from neutral to attractive. MBNA Corporation, the bank holding company in a major issue of credit cards, down 1 3/8 after Payne Weber downgraded it from neutral to unattractive. And McDonnell Douglas edged 1/8 higher out of that $6 billion in Saudi Arabian jetliner contracts. Apparently, McDonnell Douglas may get as much as $2 billion worth of business. Morrison Knudsen up 1 1/8, best percentage gain of the day. It's in agreement with its bankers, who will extend until July 31st all waivers on its loan covenant defaults. Gives them a little more time to operate. Waterhouse Investment Services gaining 2 3/8. It's a discount brokerage. And George Frost, an independent analyst, issued a very positive report saying this stock is a strong buy because it's undervalued compared to its competitors like Quick & Riley and Charles Schwab. Heelig-Myers, the furniture retailer, up 1 7/8. May same-store sales rose 6.6%. Total sales up 25%. Pep Boys, the auto parts chain, up 2 1/4 points after rising 1 3/4 Friday. Rumors persist that Sears Roebuck might make a buyout bid. Westcorp up 1 full point. The company's Western Financial Savings unit will file for a 3.8 million share initial public offering. That's about 17% of the stock. And of course, Westcorp will keep the other 83% after the offering. Diagnostic dropping 1 1/8. Fourth quarter earnings higher, 20 versus 15 cents, but below street estimates. And Value Health has lowered its stock swap merger offer from a little over a 1/2 share of Value Health to a little under a 1/2 share. NASDAQ trading a record high with that gain of 9.88 in the index. 372 million shares, 19 stocks up for every 13 lower. Lotus Development on 29.7 million shares topped the active list, rising over 28 points, almost 29. That accounted for 1 1/3 points of the nearly 10-point gain in the composite index. Intel down 3/4. Microsoft up 1 5/8. U.S. Healthcare gained 1 1/4, and Cisco System rose 1/2. Amgen up 1 5/8. Applied Materials fell 3/8, and so did Oracle System. Adobe System rose 2 1/2 points. Positive mention in Barron's. T. Rowe Price Science and Technology Fund, that's one of their top picks. Apple Computer up 1 3/8 on that Lotus takeover. Incidentally, Lotus said after the close it's meeting with its investment banker Lazard Frere, and the board of Lotus will meet in 10 days. A+ Communications up 1 3/4. The company will acquire Network USA Paging for 4.2 million shares of A+ stock plus 12 million in cash. Standard Microsystem plunging over 4 points after the company said it sees a second quarter loss of 20 to 25 cents a share. And Plaintree Systems down 2 11/32. This is a Canadian computer systems and services company, and it predicted lower first quarter sales. The American Exchange Index up 0.87, not a new high, but getting close again. Trading volume down 1 million shares from Friday, 313 up, 237 down. Viacom B on nearly 3 million shares topped the active list, rising 1/4. American Technical Ceramics up 2 5/8. The company makes high-frequency capacitors, and a spokesman told us he sees the company well in place to prosper in this new wireless communications rage. And Sandy Corporation up 1 3/4. The company received a $12 a share buyout bid from Automatic Data Processing Corporation. That's our Wall Street wrap-up, Cassie.
They're a pretty common sight at corporate meetings in the U.S. Disgruntled shareholders airing their gripes with the firm. And now, as Reuters correspondent Steen Stovall explains from London, the tactic is making its way across the Atlantic.
This is the season for shareholder meetings in Britain, but change is in the air this year. Shareholders in British companies have suddenly begun to bring their thoughts and grievances to these meetings in a big way. One example was this year's annual shareholders meeting in London of HSBC Holdings plc, which owns Marine Midland in the US. The group's executives were put under the gun by dissident shareholders, angered by Midland Bank's activities in the arms trade.
Well, we're here today as shareholders to call on Midland Bank to stop financing arms sales that lead to increased repression and, in fact, to murder.
We take great care when we're analysing a deal to make sure that we're only dealing in weapons that have the support of the British government and can't be used offensively.
Many observers blame the UK government for the trend here in stockholder activism.
It is encouraging people to either go and buy a few shares so that they can go and make their point at the AGM, or indeed to use the few shares that they have to go and make their point. No doubt the government is partly responsible, together with consumer affairs programs, for this, if you like, shift or Americanism, as you explained earlier, taking hold in this country.
Professional US investors who own shares in UK companies are also becoming more active here. It was American shareholders who put pressure on Northern Electric to allow a fresh bid for the privatized utility from the conglomerate Trafalgar House.
The problem will not go away because of the nature of privatization, because of the nature now of the shareholding classes, because of the nature of government policy, and indeed I think it will not go away because of human nature itself.
All this is causing concern in boardrooms here in Britain and over on the European continent. Analysts say it's an inevitable result, though, of Europe's drive for wider share ownership, as well as the desire on the part of stockholders to have a bigger say in their investments and their search for bigger returns. Steen Stovall of Reuters for Nightly Business Report, London.
Coming up, author and business columnist Kleiman on the role of women in corporate America.
General Motors reportedly plans to return to the Philippines by building a billion-dollar auto plant. A Philippine government official says GM plans to assemble 150,000 cars a year and produce major parts for export throughout Asia. The official also says GM plans to enter the Philippine domestic market. GM pulled out of the Philippines in 1984 because of political turmoil.
Japan's economic slump claimed another victim today when office equipment firm Nippon Data Kiki said it had gone bankrupt with nearly $600 million in debt. The company was once a darling of Japanese and foreign stock market investors. 2 years ago, its stock traded at over 3,200 yen, but it ended trading today at just 11 yen.
In tonight's commentary, Kleiman, business columnist with the Chicago Tribune and author of The Career Coach, discusses the views of women in corporate America who say they're being treated differently than their male peers.
Alien territory, a hostile environment. These words are not hypothetical comments made by visitors from another planet or from strange encounters of the third kind. Instead, these phrases are used by 54% of 500 top female executives. And what they're talking about is what it's like to be a woman trying to be successful in corporate America. According to a survey conducted for Working Woman magazine by the Lewis Harris polling firm, more than half of the nation's top-ranking female executives feel unwanted. Many report they are treated as outsiders by the old boy network, no matter how excellent their work. They say they don't get the same assignments, responsibilities, nor career nurturing as their male counterparts. What's most distressing about the report is that these are the women we think have made it in the corporate culture. Those surveyed are vice presidents or above at companies with $100 million in annual sales. The women probably earn in the six figures and get most of the benefits and perks that go with such positions. But being made to feel like aliens, they say, is their biggest problem. That's one reason so many women are starting their own businesses, and others are filing sex discrimination lawsuits. But there's another possible solution, and the women surveyed recommend it. A corporate policy established by top management to promote and train women was ranked as the #1 answer by 82% of the respondents. I'm Carol Kleiman.
Tomorrow on Nightly Business Report, the administration gets ready for next week's G7 summit in Halifax. We'll take a look at what President Clinton hopes to accomplish, especially where the U.S. relationship with the government of Japan is involved. That's Nightly Business Report for Monday, June 5th. I'm Cassie Seifert in New York. Good night, Paul.
Good night, Cassie. I'm Paul Kangas in Miami, wishing all of you the best of goodbyes.
Nightly Business Report is produced in association with Reuters, which provides real-time and historical market data, news, and analytics over Quotron Advantage AE. And is made possible by A.G. Edwards, serving the investment needs of individuals for more than 100 years. A.G. Edwards, built on a foundation of trust, research, and commitment to investor success. Franklin & Templeton Worldwide formed the more than $115 billion Franklin Templeton Group, a global alliance of over 110 mutual funds and investment products, including U.S. government securities funds. Digital, doing whatever it takes to make information work for people, and not the other way around. And by the financial support of viewers like you.
Join us weekdays at 7 for up-to-the-minute business news and analysis on Nightly Business Report. Coming up next on Vermont TV, stay tuned for Travels in Europe with Rick Steves.
What methods do Wall Street professionals use to try to beat the market and get consistent profits? Paul Kangas tells you in a new video, the NBR Guide to Stock Market Strategies. To order by credit card, call 1-800-535-5864.
The Nightly Business Report on Vermont TV is funded in part by the DPM Group of Montreal, independent brokers of full financial services, dedicated to a tradition of financial security and peace of mind, and by members like you.
Hi, I'm John King. This year, Vermont TV's total operating budget is $5.2 million. Of this, $2.6 million comes from our members, viewers like you. Thanks to the annual support of contributing members and our cost-cutting measures, we've managed to stay on track throughout the year with income and expenses so far. To all of you who've contributed during the past year, thank you very much. But I have a serious message to share with you. The programs you and your family enjoy on Vermont TV are in danger. As funding for public television continues to be debated in Washington, Vermont TV is fighting to preserve a sound financial future. Our fiscal year ends on June 30th, and we simply must end the year successfully in order to face the challenges ahead. Please call now with your pledge. Your support makes all the difference.
Vermont TV must end its fiscal year in the black by June 30th. This is no time to have a shortfall. Call the toll-free number you see on the screen with your pledge of $120, $60, or any amount. Or you can rush your check to one of the addresses below. With your help, we can reach this goal and face the challenges ahead.
On the next David Attenborough's Natural World, meet some of the most well-traveled birds in the world.
They fidget and preen their long-distance equipment.
And one working mother who's outdone them all. After 21 trips from the North to the South Pole and back, Sylvia the Arctic Tern sets off for voyage number 22. Follow her exciting journey on the next David Attenborough's Natural World.
Tonight at 8 on Vermont TV.